Hello everyone who's watching this video. Today I have actually a '03 V6 car that has totally been transformed into a Saleen. I bought a '01 Saleen, which has the Series 2 supercharger on it the guy had spun out at a higher rate of speed, and the back quarter panel ended up hitting another car and pretty much warped the car. But the only part it really tore up on that car was the back original bumper. And so I took the V6 car to transfer everything over, and I ended up finding a original Saleen bumper from a guy in Texas. It's actually the Extreme bumper, but everything it needs work. You know, a car that's 20 years old, a lot of rock pits in the paint and fading and, clear coat problems. The V6 car had been sitting outside, but it was really straight, zero rust. Changed everything from all the wiring harness, cluster, computer, rear end, drive shaft, engine, transmission, front suspension, sway bar. It's basically the Saleen. And I know everybody says, oh, it's just a clone. I mean, I took a Saleen that had been hit in the back and moved everything over. Actually, hate to be the one to say this, but a lot of Saleen stuff is not so great. So I've replaced the intercooler hoses, put fans on the intercooler, puller fans. Had to get a new intercooler tank. Didn't want that big thing. The intercooler tank, a lot of people say, well, you need the more fluid you got, the better it stays cool. I don't know. An extra liter or something. I see the tank as being a place to basically have a place to fill it and check it, make sure it's working. Did a SureFlow pump instead of the Ford, which puts out nearly twice the amount of water pushing. All new fittings. The hoses that come on the original Saleen were so hard over time. They were like rocks, and the fittings were rusty. The actual inside diameter of the fittings had corroded so bad that they were probably half the size that they were supposed to be. And I also installed a catch can, just old cheap thing off eBay. But I guarantee you, had one of these on a Ford Harley that was supercharged, it works just as good as JLT. I've had JLTs on Coyotes, and it works just as good. The bottom comes off, empty it. So really need that on a supercharged car, pulling all that crap in from the, idle air control or PCV coming back into it. Because when I pulled the intercooler, you really have to have oven cleaner to clean all that, and be careful not to leave it on there too long, but long enough to get all that crap off, because it is stuck. It's some brown goo that you'd have to get a scientist to tell you what all it is in that. But it just won't come off with brake cleaner or only thing I found was oven cleaner. And I've done it on 2 superchargers, and they've worked well. Only thing, your Teflon on your fins in the supercharger is probably going to come apart when you take it apart. Haven't had no trouble so far with that either, just peeling all that stuff off. I'm sure it's there for a reason, but so be it. So at this point, this thing has got BBK long tube headers, which are kind of a pain in the ass, but they were put on before the engine was put in, which again made it a little hard to put the engine in because it is tight. This is, even though it's a 4.6, it is a big engine to try to put in there with the transmission on it, because if you've ever done a transmission on one of these in the car, it's not that easy. But then again, it was a little difficult. I had to pull the gear shifter off the transmission and then lost fluid. And anyway, we got it in. I'm going to do a cold start. Really in a cold start. I have ran it today. But right now it's going through the long tube headers into a X pipe, and that is it. I've got Saleen mufflers I'm afraid they're going to be too quiet. But they were on sale. They actually have Saleen stamped into them, like anybody's going to be crawling there looking at them. But I guess when people work on it, they may be impressed. Woo, whatever. I'm going to see how they sound really before I run this thing out, because the Extreme runs out the back middle, which is going to take a little bit of custom work since I don't have the original stuff. But when I got the Saleen, I bought it from a guy. I'm in West Georgia, drove to South Carolina to buy it was a yellow convertible. And he had sold the seats and the cluster. I was so mad, but I got the whole car for $3,000. And really the only thing I had to replace was the back bumper. I mean, I got to do a lot of work on the body stuff. As you can see, the bumper, front bumper's back there. The side skirts were in terrible shape, so I've been stripping those. It just had, not all Saleens came with a fancy hood, so it just had really a V6 hood that Saleen used, unless somebody had sold it, but it was the exact same color. But I found a Cobra. The Saleen extractor hoods are way too expensive, and the Cobra I actually like better. This is an original Cobra hood I bought, which had to do some work, but that's fine. It's a project. I don't know if I ever want it to be completely done, because then you get bored and then you start wanting to sell it and get something else, and you put tons of money into something and give it to somebody else. But here we go. I'm going to crank this thing up. My interior still is out. I'm deciding on what to do about the interior at this point. It has a McLeod dual disc clutch, which I'm probably going to regret. Let's see. I think my tensioner pulley, it's ticking and clicking for some reason. This is going to sound like it's blowing up, but it's not. So that's that. Been having to do some manual tuning for the TPS and trying to get it all organized with the idle. Took it out yesterday and it very strong at idle, but going down the road it wanted to die, so got some more tuning to do. But wanted to show what this thing sounded like with pretty much straight exhaust on a little 4.6 2V that everybody, hates on. But I've heard Terminators, I mean, they, you can make them sound good, but there's something about the 2V that it's got its own sound. Like the early Cobras, the non-Terminators had their own sound. I've heard the Terminators. I guess maybe I've not heard the right ones, but I hadn't been too impressed. But I know they're strong. They're awesome. Maybe I'll have one day. Anyway, y'all have a good one.